All right, we're moving on here. We've got Driven API Development with Frédéric Harper, who is Director of Development Relations at Mindee, and it looks like you've got a mascot right behind you, Fred. Is that right?
I have one, and I have one sitting next to me,
Good.
actually. Yeah,
Okay, so you've got your workmate there. Well,
I
welcome,
do.
and I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. So, good afternoon, evening, morning, maybe night. I hope you're having a great day. My name is Frédéric Harper. You can call me Fred. I'm the Director of Developer Relations at Mindee. And today, as Christine said, I'm going to talk about Driven API development. Feel free during the presentation after to share things that I said, to take screenshot of my slides, to disagree with me on Twitter. More than happy to get some feedback. I spend way too much time on Twitter, but my handle is @HEFHarper, HARPR. So on that note, we only have 20 minutes today together. So that's going to be like a quick overview of Driven API development. But at the same time, I really hope that by the end of the presentation, you're going to have some tricks or some ideas about where to start to just like use this as your superpower for your API development. So you have a product, you have a service, you're creating an API or multiple endpoint APIs for developers, and you're like, you know what? My software is good. My product is good. The API is running well. Like we're gonna win that thing. We're gonna be the best out of it. But the thing is that if nobody see your product, if nobody heard about you, if nobody like come to your website to try your application or to just sign up, it may be a little bit difficult. Or like if we learn about you and we go on your website, but the documentation is not super clear, or even worse, you have code example and they're dated, or it's just not clear how to use the product or how to get the best out of the product, or even how to get started. Even if you think it's simple and it's easy to use, it may not be the case. Or maybe you're not even listening to the users. And I'm not saying this in a really bad way. It's not that you don't want to listen to your users or potential customers. Just like you may not have the time, because as a developer, your focus is really about building the API. It's really about building the application. But the thing is that if you don't have great documentation, if you don't go outside and talk about what you're offering to developers, what is the solution that can solve their issues, or that can help them being successful, it's basically game over. And I'm like, I know I'm being a little bit over dramatic. You may be luckier, but at the same time, if you want to ensure to be successful, you really need to think about Driven API development. And this is probably the time of my talk where we're going to see who just read the title and did not read the abstract. So Driven API development, what does that mean? It means developer relation include very early and naturally in your API development process. So yes, this is a talk about Driven API development, which means about developer relations. So how does a team of developer relation, how does a developer advocate can help your API to reach out more people in your company or your business or your project to be more successful? So I know it was far-fetched with the name, but I thought that I was, I don't know, I was inspired when I wrote that title and that abstract. But by the end of the talk, I really hope that even if you cannot invest in the DevRel team, you're going to be able to think about the next step that you can do to really, again, empower developers to use your API and really trying to make them easier for them to use your product. So first thing first, developer relation, you may have heard about that. Maybe not. Maybe you have seen the word DevRel, which is used often to say developer relation. It's a little more popular in North America. It's starting to be also popular in Europe and in Asia and different places around the world. But at different level, different size of the company, it's still kind of like a new thing, and not everybody knows about that. So my definition, high-level definition of developer relation, is we help developers be successful by nurturing a healthy and welcoming community around put whatever makes sense, either the technology, product, service, company, API, ecosystem. This means listening to, advocating for, inspiring, educating, and supporting our community however we can. So the important words here are help. So we are there to help developers. We do that by fostering a community, by building a community. And really, at the end of the day, what do? We listen to developer. We are there to listen to developer. We advocate for them internally, and we inspire them. Hopefully, at least we try to inspire them. We educate them, basically by creating content, and we support them in, as I said, wherever we can. So there is something called the 3 C's of DevRel. I think it was a term coined by Philip Ledger, who was working at Twilio, was doing an amazing job with the developer relations team at Twilio. And basically, there is no real day-to-day for developer advocate, but I would say everything we do is basically with that foundation of community, content, and code. So day-to-day of a developer advocate, we do a lot of things. You don't really need to read that. It's just to give you an idea about like what it can look like, what we do, the kind of tasks we do. But people often know us as like, the people that speak at events and either online, like, right now, or in person. Yes, sometimes we're traveling a little less in the last 2 years, obviously. We're really active on social media, sometimes a little bit too much. Think about this guy. But there is a lot more that we do. So if we start about content, like one of the main things that we do, and depending on which company you have developer relation and depending on the goal of the company, is about content. And the main piece of content, I would say the most important piece of content, is the documentation. Remember what I said, if your documentation is not clear, if your code example are not up to date, if it's not easy to get started with your project. Developer, we're kind of like a special breed, and I'm like that. If I go try a service and I'm not able to quickly do something with the service, even if it's just a hello world, just to know how it's working, just to know that it's working and that there is potential for me to do what I need to do. Like I may just go switch and see another provider that provide me like the same kind of API or the same kind of service. So documentation is really crucial. And I would even go to say that your developer's documentation is an integral part of your product. One cannot exist without the other. And yes, I'm quoting myself. Joke aside, obviously, I'm exaggerating here, but at the same time, not that much. So part of a developer advocate role, or sometimes within a developer relations team, like I have on my team, I have a technical writer, and our job is to really try to improve the documentation and to create the new documentation when we release a new feature. And this is critical. I would say it's the foundation of everything like you should do to help your API get a little more known, that it make it easier for people to use it, and obviously probably less frustration from potential user or even customers. Good example of documentation for developers, specifically around API. Stripe is doing really a good job with their API documentation. Twilio also is doing an awesome job. So you don't even have to use those products. Just go give a closer look to the documentation that can inspire you to write your own documentation for your API or for your project or application or whatever you're offering to developers. GitHub does a good job also on two sides, which doesn't mean that the other don't, but they really do a great job when it comes to documenting their API, but also documenting the web experience, when you use the interface, what you can do. Also, what type of file you can add on your repository to make your life easier, to make your open source project more appealing to other people. And obviously, I would be damned if I did not say that our own documentation, Mindee's documentation, is also pretty good. We work hard to make it as good as we can. Obviously, it's always a work in progress. Like right now, we're updating the screenshot because we thought that the quality was not totally there. But documentation, as we do right now at Mindee, is always a work in progress. There's always a little something you can work on. And I really believe that in the case of documentation, the devils is in the details. The second thing in terms of content, creating tutorials, because yes, your documentation can explain like how to use the API, but some users, for different reasons, either they're new to your technology, they're new to the technology that you're using to like call your API, or maybe you have a SDK and they're new with that technology and they want to use it. Having a tutorials that take the user by the hand from the step of registering for your service and creating your API key or token for being able to call your endpoint, your API endpoint, to being able to do the first call, even if it's something as simple as using the command line and have do a curl call. The other thing we do is videos. But videos, can be podcasts with other developers to share interesting things, interesting news. It could be interviews with actual customers. This is also a good time to create video tutorials. But I would always say that those video tutorials, even if a lot of people are visual, they are better. You're better to do those once you have a strong text-based documentation, but also tutorials. But it's a great addition to, again, promote your API, to make it easier for people to use your API, but also to showcase like different use case of your API, like how can people do things with your product. And the things we're most known for when it comes to developer relation is public speaking. Again, as I'm doing right now online, we do webinar too. We're going to speak offline. It depends on the company, but like when I say offline, face-to-face, in person. And basically, we speak at conferences, we speak at Meetup. And the idea, again, is to try to educate developers, to try to share a passion of technology. And what is interesting too is that, as developer, we don't like product pitch. Actually, most conferences does not accept product pitches as talk, as submission for the CFP. But the idea is that we want to help developers. So most of the time, we won't even talk specifically about the API we want to promote. We're going to talk about a topic that is interesting for a developer. But with a content strategy like this, when I speak, as I'm doing right now, about DevRel, I'm still Fred from Mindee. And some of you may be curious and may go on Mindee website after and check what it is. And a part of you may sign up and try it. And another part of you may try it and it may solve an issue you have at work. And you may become customers. So it's not always the case. But it's really an approach where we don't force people. We don't try to sell like the lead that we bring to the company. The conversion from user to customers are happy, positive side effects of what we do. When it comes to code, because, in developer relation and in the title of the individual contributor, developer advocate, there is the word developer. So developer advocate, we're technical people. Most of us come from a background of developers. So we started as a developer and we realized that we were part of the, 5% of developer were social extrovert and know how to communicate to human. Sorry about the joke. I like to say that, but let's be honest, it's a little bit true. So yes, we code. Hopefully, we do better code than the image that I choose for that slide, which means that we're going to code to learn new technology, to learn the product. We're going to code to add code example to the documentation or to create the tutorials. But on top of that, we're going to create application, either demo application that's going to use the API, that's going to use the product or a service that we represent, that we advocate for. And it's really useful for user because when you have a demo application, first, that may use the technology that you want to use to build your application or to connect with the API that has a company we're offering. And it's great also to have like a quick start. As I said before, if you want to try the application really quickly, you don't even have to write code. You just go. Usually, that's going to be open source on GitHub. You just go there, install whatever you have to install the dependencies, run the application. You cross your finger. Hopefully, it works on the first time, and that gives you a really good overview of the product and how it's working. But on top of that, it also gave you code example about how to do specific things that you may want to do with the endpoint or different endpoints that you're offering to people. In addition to that, we do partnership. We integrate with other software. As an example, at Mindee, we're offering an API too. We're an API first company, and it's basically for developers. But we also integrated with a platform like Zapier, where people that are either a little less technical can still use and can still benefit from our API. So that give more, more possibility for people to use it, that give more visibility to our product. Because let's be honest, Zapier is really well used. And you know what? Even as a developer, I really love low-code, no-code solution when I have to do a specific task and I don't want to code everything and create everything from scratch. The thing that is also super important, and it is quite underestimated, also when we think about developer relation, is that we are the customer zero. So as a developer, you're coding your application, you're adding a new feature, you're creating a new endpoint, you're releasing a new version of your API. We're going to be customer zero. We're going to be your first customer. This is where, we're going to try it because we need to know how it's working, because we're going to talk about it, or we need to update the documentation, or we want to update our code demo or application demo, or just want to do tutorials about the new features. And to do that, we need to know the product, and there is nothing better than just trying the product ourselves. So with there is benefits of doing that, because as I said, being customer zero, it means that we're testing your application in real case scenario actually, and we're going to be able to maybe find bugs. Not that I'm thinking that your code has bugs, but maybe another developer may have issue with their code. So we're going to try to, we're going to find those bugs, or we're going to have ideas of features or how things could be maybe a little bit improved based on our use case. And again, this is kind of like an under evaluate. It is not seen as something that is like always beneficial, but I really believe that it's beneficial. The community part is basically around everything we do. So I said it's part of like the three foundation of DevRel, but I would probably change the pattern and say like, hey, there is the 2C, like code and content, and community is englobing everything, because everything we do is people driven. So we are technical people that connect with people. It's basically what we do. So a lot of time we're going to network, and by networking with developer, what we do is that we create relationship with people, we connect with people, and by doing that, we answer their questions. So either in our own community, like as I said on Mindee, we have a Slack community, so people join in, people that are curious about what we are offering, people that are using either our open source project or our API, paid API, and people that have questions, they may have issues. So we're gonna be like, part of my job is to help them to answer the question. And the thing is that I may not know everything, but at least I'm gonna know who to ask within the company to get the answer, or which person I should put in relation. But we also do this on third-party website, like the well-known Stack Overflow, where we're gonna answer question from people and help them, again, understand the platform and be sure that they're going to use the platform in the best way possible for them to solve their issue. One of the things that I firmly believe that we're missing at the enterprise level is listening to people. And obviously every company says like, yeah, we listen to our customers, but do we really listen to our customers? And this is one of the things I really like to do. It's listening to developers that may want to use my product or not, or people that are using my product. And by listening to them, there's a part of my job is that first, I'm going to understand what's their issue, what's their day-to-day, what is working well for them, but also what is not working, what they would be looking for with our product in terms of like new feature, or maybe bug that we didn't decided to prioritize for X reasons that is really causing pain and issues with some other developers. So part of my job, which is the advocating part, is to bring that feedback to the product team to influence the roadmap. So either maybe just to confirm that we took the right decision with what we're going to work on next. And sometimes, maybe we heard different things, quote unquote, on the street, and maybe that's going to influence the roadmap to go in a proper direction that will really bring value to the users. So in the end, basically what we do, we give love to developer, and this is the reality. This is what we do. But because it's people driven, because we don't force people, things we do, the impact we have on the business is quite often medium to long term. So it's an investment that we do in people. We trust people, we connect with them, we get the feedback, we educate them, and we really give them love at the end of the day. So in the end, I said a lot of things about DevRel. I said a lot of things about developer advocate. But the thing with everything I said is that you can do that. So if you're not on the point in your company that you can hire a developer advocate or even build a team, the benefit of everything I said, you can do that at a small level. You don't have to do everything. You can start with what are the priorities for like what you want to do in terms of trying to, you know, go to the driven API development and actually trying to make your API more interesting to people and ensure that people gonna use your API in a proper way and gonna have a better experience. Because again, if nobody really understands how to use your product, even if you think it's simple, you really need to be there and start to implement different of those things that I shared today. So obviously the focus was presenting about DevRel, but all those things can be done by everyone. And actually, in the company at Mindee, what I'm telling everyone that is joining the company is that you are part of DevRel. Developer relation is a company initiative. So yes, it's 100% of my time and people on my team, but at the end of the day, everybody do developer relation. So some quick resources. I think the talk is recorded. I'm going to put the slides online too, but you can go on Mindee/DevRel and get up. I started a repo to add some resources. Developeradvocacy.com is an online book written by my friend Christian Mann, and it's good even if it was not my friend. And when it comes to documentation, which is probably the first thing you should prioritize, writethedocs.org is the community for you to learn about writing good documentation, find resources, and lastly, if you really want to build a developer relation team or at least hire a developer advocate, there is a book by Mary Tengvall. I hope I said her name correctly, The Business Value of Developer Relation, which is pretty good in terms of like understanding what's next. So we're going to take some questions, but right before, feel free to write me an email at fred@mindee.com. I'm always on Twitter, way too much, so at @fharper. And if you want to talk about developer relation, or if you want to talk about specific aspect of that presentation today, want to learn more, or you were not able to ask your question publicly, or you didn't want to ask your question publicly, you can also schedule time with me. If you go on fred.dev/coffee, you can schedule a 30-minute video with me, and we're going to just chat, and hopefully that's going to be helpful, and we're going to get to know each other.
Great. Fred, thank you so much. I love what you covered. And I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Shai's, but he talked about building trust. And I think you're doing the same, right, with DevRel in terms of credibility equals trust equals business, right? Like that's how it plays out. So I am curious, question came in around how the feedback loop works. So when you're talking to users, other developers, they have opinions. Are you able to prioritize, right? Shocker. Are you able to prioritize those with the engineering team and say, I've heard this 10 times now, we need to do this, or does that just get in the queue like anything else? Talk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, to be honest, it really depends on the company. It depends on the relationship you're able to build with other team, because the thing with developer relation is that, yes, we are a team or we are a person doing specific things, but we work with many part of the company and many part of the business. And hopefully you have a great relationship with the engineering team or the product team who's going to help you prioritize. So yes, there are feedbacks that, developer would like to complain to. So sometimes the feedback may not be like the most nice feedback. There are feedbacks that I may not report for different reasons, but I'm trying as much as possible to report a feedback. And again, as you said, there is some kind of weight also in the feedback in terms of like there is many people that reported the same thing. So that gave a little more, I don't know, it's not the right word, but credibility to the feedback that we get. And obviously, we're a business, we have different priorities. We cannot always include the feedback of people or prioritize what people want. Sometimes it's hard for some people to understand, but it's also my job to have that discussion that is not always an easy discussion with people and say like, hey, you know what? It's not part of the focus we want to go work on, but we hear you. And hopefully maybe in the future something's going to happen. But the thing is that I always have an honest discussion with people, and if we can prioritize that, or if we won't, like I was going to say, if we won't fix an issue, I don't think that's going to happen, but like if we won't prioritize a feature, I can give a reason, like, you know what, we won't prioritize this because we have XYZ, because of this other thing.
Exactly.
But sometimes it brings interesting discussion.
Yeah, and that's part of it, is understanding
It
the
is.
need well enough. You might want the button to be green. Why is that? Maybe there's a deeper need, and then you can build the use case and the user story around it. Great.
Exactly.
Well, Fred, thank you so much, and I appreciate all the different ways that people can get in touch with you and continue on your journey. It's just amazing. So thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.